Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
What's up, PGF Nation? We are back with our NFL season over, under, win total predictions, this time for the NFC. But before we dive in, be sure to go back and check out our AFC predictions episode if you haven't already. I'm Brad Fowler with my co-host, Alex Higodn. Let's not waste any time, Alex. Let's kick this off. I want to start in the NFC North. Really good division last year. I think it should be good again this year. And let's start with the Chicago Bears, a team that's getting a lot of hype this offseason. Their over-under win total is 8.5. Now, Chicago, I think, had made a lot of big upgrades from the coaching staff, free agents, and of course the draft. But like I mentioned, one of the toughest divisions in football, rookie head coach, and they have the fifth most difficult schedule next season. I'm going to take the under 8.5, even though I think they're going to show improvement.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the over. Specifically, you already talked about the coaching, but the three offensive linemen that they brought in just told us a lot of what they're gonna do here. They're gonna try and lean on the run as they help Caleb Williams get comfortable in the office before they, start to take off. So I think around week 9 or 10, we're about to see a different version of the Chicago Bears, and I think they'll make a run towards the end of their schedule.
Yeah, I think you could be right. I think it's a team that could get it going later in the year for sure. Now, how about the Detroit Lions? Really good team the last couple of years. They've been in that Super Bowl window. Their season win total, their over-under is 10.5 games. Now, Frank Ragnow retires. Big loss up front on the offensive line. 2 brand new coordinators. Aiden Hutchinson is back for the defense, though. That's obviously going to be big for them. Still a very good roster, but they face 11 teams that were in the playoffs last year. That is a tough schedule. So even though I like this team, I think they take a small step back this year. I'm going to take the under 10.5. Very good team, a playoff team again, but I think a lot of turnover for this team, especially in the coaching staff, and then that really tough schedule. I don't think they're going to be quite as good as they were last year.
Yeah, and I'm really big on coaching, Brad. You know how I feel about it. And it's not just losing the coaches, it's also losing the assistant in position, the position coaches as well, between what Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson took. So I'm going to take the under as well. I don't think they'll be as fine-tuned. You can have the same playbook, but when and where you call those plays, it will be the big difference here. You mentioned Frank Ragnow. They also lost, and I can't think off the top of my head, they lost another offensive lineman. So that offensive line took 2 big hits. I'm sure they expected to lose the guard in free agency, but then they also probably unexpectedly perhaps lost Frank Ragnow. So that's a blow. Penny Sewell's still there, but it's going to be interesting to see how this team looks, especially when the play calling. We know what the Eagles looked like 2 years ago, and everybody was complaining about what? The coordinators.
All right, Green Bay Packers. This is the team that I have a tough time figuring this team out. They draft Matthew Golden in the first round. We both really like him out of Texas. Very good roster. A lot of good depth on this roster in a lot of different positions. But who's elite? I mean, really, when you look at this, there's no stars on this team really anywhere. It's a lot of B plus guys. Not a lot of AA plus guys. We have a really good coach. I think the big hole on this team is the secondary. I think that secondary is going to be bad, and that could be a problem for that defense. I think this is a good team. I don't think it's a great team. I'm going to take the under 9.5 wins. I think they're in the playoff conversation, but I don't think they're in the contender conversation.
Yeah, they're not in the contender conversation. What's the over-under? You said 10.5?
9.5 for the Packers.
So yeah, I'm actually gonna take the over there. I'm gonna take the over. I think this is a play that we talked about, a player that I love coming out. A guy I thought is gonna be a monster when he gets on the field. He has an unstoppable motor. Lucas Van Ness is now inserted into the starting lineup. So I love what he's going to be able to bring. You get Quay Walker and Edrin Cooper. They're now a little bit more seasoned, so they're going to explode. We know they lost Jair Alexander, so to your point, in the secondary, there's going to be some issues, but I think their front seven perhaps can help there as well. The offense, I think, will be fine because Matthew Golden is a player Christian Watson is always hurt. I'm surprised he's still on the team. I think this might be his fifth. I think this is his fifth year, so he'll be gone. And watch out for Savion Williams, their third-round pick, a guy that I think can be sneaky good in terms of what they need to do on the field and little plays that he can take, that he can turn up the field in that West Coast offense and do some things with. So I'm actually going to take the over there.
Yeah, that means 10 wins. That's going to be a really good season for them if it happens. The one thing I will say real quick before we move on, we both liked Lucas Van Ness coming out of the draft, but he's been a big disappointment. I mean, he has not looked anything like a top 13 pick, but I've heard some reports from some of the beat writers that cover this team that said he has flashed at training camp. So maybe this is a breakout year for him. So you could be onto something there, and I hope it is. Minnesota Vikings, really fascinating team here. Really, really good team last year. The over-under season win total has dropped, though, 8.5 for the over-under for them. And look, a lot is riding on quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Young quarterback, of course, missed his rookie year, coming off of an injury, really difficult schedule. The NFC North plays a tough schedule this year. And look, this is a team that I think overachieved in 2024. I'm expecting them to come kind of back to earth in 2025, especially with a young quarterback that I think there's some big question marks. Now, look, I like Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a really good offensive mind, and I think he'll find a way to use J.J. McCarthy as far as use his strengths, I should say, and highlight what he's good at. But I still think there's a steep learning curve there and a drop-off at that position. I'm going to take the under 8.5. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I am gonna totally agree with you. I like what they did in offseason with free agencies, bringing on the defensive side, bringing in Hargrove, bringing in Jonathan Allen. I think Brian Flores is going to be a big part of why they may be in games, but I'm going to agree with you and take the under. Out of those 5 quarterbacks that got taken in the top 10, he's the one guy that I don't believe in, J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he fits the explosiveness that we've seen from Minnesota going back to Kirk Cousins. I don't think we're going to see those explosive plays that we saw from them. However, that offensive line is very good, so the running game may help out a lot here.
Yeah, and I think to your point, this is a great coaching staff, and I think that's why they overachieved last year, and it might be why they're still in the mix this year, but I do think they take a step back. America's team. Let's shift to the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys. Season over-under win total for Dallas is only 7.5. I'm sure a lot of Cowboys fans feel disrespected right now. But look, I think Vegas has it right. Brian Schottenheimer takes over as the head coach. He was the OC last year, but didn't call plays, which is interesting. Dak Prescott, of course, recovering from a torn hamstring. I think the offensive line is average at best, which I think is a big question mark for them. I think the running back room is weak. I don't trust George Pickens to be a grown-up. They can't run the ball. They can't stop the run. That is a huge issue in the National Football League. Hammer the under 7.5. I think this team is a big disappointment this year.
I really want to say break even here. I guess I have to take the over because I think they'll get 8 wins. I've been hearing a lot of Cowboys fans, shout out to that space we share, Brad. A lot of Cowboys fans have been saying 10. But again, that coaching staff, I think the defense will be better with Eberflus. Now, barring what I think is eventually going to happen, because I still don't know how they're going to do it and maintain what they're doing, I still think Micah Parsons gets traded. So if Micah Parsons is still there, then yes, I'll give them 8 wins. If he leaves or if they trade him, I hammer the under. I don't know. But I will say this, in contrary to what you think, I actually think Javonte Williams is a very good running back. I don't think Miles Sanders makes the team, by the way. But the running back room, right, I don't think Miles Sanders makes the team. But I like Javonte Williams. I think he was, as you know, misused in Denver because Trump refuses to run the ball. But I think here with the rookie Tyler Booker, that offensive line needs some cohesion. I'm not going to get into Tyler Guyton because go look up our previous podcast about last year's draft and what we thought about Tyler Guyton, or specifically me because I killed him. But I think the running game is actually going to be a lot better. But yeah, you're correct. They still can't stop.
Wow, some hot takes mixed in there with the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to trade Micah. Man, I love it. That's awesome. That would be incredible to see for sure, and to see what kind of market he has and where he could end up. That's fascinating for sure. All right, New York Giants. Look, there's no way around it. This might be the worst team in the NFL. This quarterback room is a mess. You have a washed up Russell Wilson, a rookie that I quite frankly had a 3rd round grade on that they took in the 1st round and traded up to get, by the way. Absolutely brutal schedule. Statistically speaking, it's the most difficult schedule in the NFL this season. For a team that's not very good, that spells big time trouble. They could legit start 0-9. This team is in major trouble. They're only favored in 1 game all season, and that's against the lowly Saints, who we'll talk about later. Their season over-under win total is only 5.5, and I'm actually taking the under, Alex. I think this team legitimately has a shot for the number 1 pick in the draft.
I want everybody in PGF Nation to listen, because there's a narrative that me and Brad never disagree. We've disagreed at least 3 times already. You said 5.5?
Yeah, 5.5 is the over-under win total.
I actually had them at 6, so I guess I got to take the over there. And remember that, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Solely based on that defense. I think that defense, I know they have a new coordinator, but I think that defense is ready to pop. You know, we talk about Kayvon Thibodeau in and out of the lineup, but now if you add Kayvon Thibodeau and Abdul Carter, where they can spare Kayvon Thibodeau because he's injury riddled, along with Brian Burns, along with a healthy Dexter Lawrence, who's probably the 2nd best nose tackle in the league, and they added Javon Holland at the safety position, along with Tyler Newbern from last year's safety position. I think that defense is going to keep them in games, and I think Russ is going to be able to do some things. Again, everything is hinged a lot on health. Malik Neighbors, Russ is going to be able to get Malik Neighbors the ball. I'll say that. And I like Tyrone Tracy a lot. I think he came on at the end of the year. The mixture of him, Evan Singletary. So I'm actually going to take the over, but at 6 wins.
Yeah, as dark of a picture as I painted for them, they actually do have some building block pieces. But like I said, it's just such a brutal schedule, and I just don't think they have enough to be competitive this year against all these playoff teams they're going to face.
So wait, hold on 1 second. Before you move it, I'm required to say, and it'll be interesting to see what Cam Scatterbo does on that team as well. I'm required to say that every time I see him.
Yeah, he's a guy that we really like, that Arizona State. Man, he was so fun to watch in the college football playoff. Such a good player in college and just a really physical downhill guy. He'll be fun to see what he can do and in that running game with Tracy, like you mentioned, who was a diamond in the rough that they found in the draft last year. All right, the defending champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, their season over-under win total is 11.5. This is a team that returns nearly all of their key contributors on offense. The defense is loaded. This is the best roster in the NFL, hands down. I don't even think it's debatable. They are so good at every position besides quarterback. Yeah, I said it. Over 11.5 wins for the Eagles. I know that is a big win total, but I think they steamroll this division. And I think in the NFC, there's just not a lot of teams, quite frankly, in the NFL, but in the NFC especially, there's just not a lot of teams that are going to be able to match up with these guys. I think they roll and are probably the number 1 seed in the NFC once again.
Yeah, I can agree there. I'll take the over as well, because division, is shaky. So yeah, that they could sweep those guys. So that's 4 wins out the gate already, right? So we're looking at a team that can probably end up with, you said 11.5, correct? Yeah, so you're looking at a team that can probably get 12 to 13 wins. I don't know if they'll do 14-3 again, but 12 to 13 wins, I can definitely see this team getting.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Let's be sure and mention new offensive coordinator, even though he was the passing game coordinator there with Kellen Moore. Brand new offensive coordinator, even though he was the passing game coordinator and assistant head coach last year. So if there's any chink in the armor, I believe it'll be there.
Yeah, it's a good point. Washington Commanders, look, this was the surprise team in the NFL last year, no doubt about it, making a run all the way to the NFC Championship game with a historic rookie season from Jaden Daniels. But the defense was bad. 29th in the NFL last year. That's what I'm circling here for this team. I think the offense should be good again. They added Deebo Samuel. They bring over Laramie Tunzel. I really like Josh Connerly, who they drafted. I thought it was a really good draft. I thought they really filled some holes and got some really good players. But once again, this is another team with a tough schedule. Lions, Chargers, Bears, Chiefs, Broncos, all of those teams, they're going to play out of the division. And we just mentioned how good Philadelphia is, so a couple tough games there as well. They're under win totals 9.5. I'm going to take the under. I don't think this is a bad team by any means. I think this is a team that's in the playoff mix again, but I just think with a tough schedule, teams getting some tape on Jaden Daniels year 2, we always talk about that. Does he take a small step back? I could certainly see that, similar to what we saw with CJ Stroud in year 2. Good team. I don't see an NFC championship run again in them this year. So I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, and we'll start on the defensive side. I think that was one of the things they needed to address, specifically pass rusher. Let's just call it what it is, specifically pass rusher. We know, I just mentioned Micah. We know what Trey Hendrickson decided to show up to camp. So there's that. They're still lacking the pass rusher. They did solidify the offensive line. Larry Tunsil is a stud left tackle with a rookie, your franchise quarterback, if you want to see him that way. But I will go to exactly what you said, and I've been talking about it all summer long. When teams get tape on you, now it's up to the offensive coordinator. And Cliff Kingsbury, we saw what happened in Arizona. Perhaps the Tiger has changed his stripes. We'll have to wait and see. But now there's tape. So now we're going to see what you're going to do. And we talked about bringing Debo in. That's nice. Does anybody know the last time Debo's been healthy enough to get through a full season? Sometimes he can't even get through games even if he starts them. So we'll have to wait and see. And oh, by the way, Terry McLaurin still is not happy with whatever's going on with his contract. So he's not even in training camp per se. He's there, but not on the field.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting team. And I think you're right. Cliff Kingsbury is a guy that usually he fades in the second half of seasons. That didn't happen last year, but I think you're right. There's something you've said about getting the tape on a guy, and they also had a lot of close wins last year. Usually when that happens, teams tend to kind of take a step back towards the mean the next year.
And let's also remember, they didn't improve that running game. We know what Jaden Daniels is, but they did not improve that running game. That was the big thing in the draft that I thought with all the running backs that we talked about, Brad, they didn't get any.
Yeah, it's a good point. Now, let's shift to the NFC West. Arizona Cardinals. Alex, hold my beer. The defense was terrible last year, near the very bottom of the NFL, and they're going to rely on a bunch of first-year players this year on that side of the ball. I don't think it's a stretch to say I think this is a make-or-break year for Kyler Murray, and this is a guy who's never shown he could be a franchise quarterback. Quite frankly, he's never improved since his rookie year. Just go look at his stats. He's the same guy he was when he came out of college, only one playoff appearance, and he got blown out. The Cardinals have finished 3rd or 4th in their division every single year he's been the starter except once. The over-under is 8.5. Give me the under. And here's a hot take. Kyler gets traded next offseason.
Well, the hot take is interesting. What would be number one thing I want to know is who's the team that bites on that with that contract still. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I have to agree with you on Kyler Murray. I've not necessarily been high on the Cardinals. I just think I like their coaching. I like what they've been able to do, but it's just simply rush Kyler Murray. Whatever side Marvin Harrison is on, rush from that side and push him to the other way and take Marvin Harrison out. It's too easy to defend. We've said it a million times. If this kid is 5'11", 6 feet tall, we're probably having a different discussion about what his projection truly is in the NFL, because he has all the tools. It's really due to him being short. Other stuff aside, Grand Theft Auto aside, or Call of Duty aside, and then the defense. I think the defense actually be improved. Will be improved under Jonathan Gannon. I like that. We're finally, hopefully, get to see what Darius Robertson can do. He was I don't want to say a sleeper, but an under the radar pick that people weren't really looking at a lot. So we'll get to see what he does this year. I like Denzel Burke. I like drafting Will Johnson. I like what they did the previous year. Max Melton, Buda Baker, actually should be free. Buda Baker at this point, he should be asking for a trade. It's time for him to go for his sake. But yeah, I think the defense will be better, so they may keep him in some games. What's the over-under again?
Over-under is 8.5.
Yeah, I think they'll only get 7 wins here.
Yeah, I think it's another disappointing season for the Cardinals again. And look, but I think it's more than just a height thing. I really do. I know he's undersized and that doesn't help, but I think this guy lacks leadership. I think he lacks maturity. I think he lacks work ethic. And look, those are important qualities for a franchise quarterback. I'm not sure he has any of those things. So talent aside, if you just put the talent aside, you still have to have those other things if you really want to develop. Because look, there's a guy in Philadelphia that doesn't have half as much talent as this guy, but he checks all those other boxes: leadership, toughness, poise, the tenacity, the will to win, clutch, all those things that he has make up for a lot of the lack of talent that he has as a passer. So there's a lot to be said. It's a lot more than just talent, because if it was just talent alone, Trevor Lawrence might be the best quarterback in the NFL, and clearly he hasn't been. So we know it takes a lot more than talent to be a great quarterback in this league. Let's shift to the LA Rams. Season over-under win total for them is 9.5. This was the 10th ranked offense last year. I really like this young defense, especially up front in that front seven. I think the secondary has been an issue. I'm not sure it's going to be a whole lot better this year. So the front seven is going to have to get after quarterbacks to kind of help them along. Stafford is a question mark, though. As good as this guy has been, he's already starting to show some signs of injury at training camp. That's a big concern for me. We know he's getting older. So this team is really interesting because I think it really is going to hinge on Stafford and his health. And I think the health is key for him. And if his age kind of catches up to him this year, and I think it might, because I really don't like that we're this early into training camp and we're already starting to hear signs of that. I'm going to take the under 9.5. Like I said, I love the coach. I like the roster. There's a lot to like for the Rams. And if he's healthy, I love the over. But I just don't know. I'm concerned, Alex, with his age and health concerns.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. But I think one key thing that they did in the offseason that was probably under the radar for most was bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I'm not saying he's Matthew Stafford, especially with that arm strength, but he is a capable quarterback that in that offense, I think he's a savvy veteran that they'll still be able to stay afloat. But I am with you at 9.5. I'm going to take the 9 wins. This defense is going to be good. Davante Adams is a perfect fit in that offense. He's an elite version of Cooper Kupp as far as I'm concerned. In terms of what we've seen Cooper Kupp over the last few years, Davante Adams is still able to put up, I would say, 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I think they can do that. Defense, I'm not really going to talk too much about. As you said, they've just been adding young player, and been hitting on defense in the draft just as much as the Philadelphia Eagles have. So I'm going to give them 9 wins, and the next team coming up is going to be wild.
Yeah, and on a side note, I'm sure Davante Adams is also thrilled about Jimmy Garoppolo being there as well. For all you guys that watch the Netflix wide receiver documentary, you know what I'm talking about. San Francisco 49ers season over-under win total is 10.5. Robert Saleh might be the biggest offseason addition in the NFL. I think this was a huge, huge move getting him back in San Francisco because the defense had really taken a step back the last couple of years. Look, he might not have been a great coach in New York, but this guy is a great defensive coordinator, and he's familiar with Shanahan. He's familiar with a lot of these players and the system they like to run. So I expect the defense to really bounce back big on that side of the ball. I think Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, because of their age and injury history, these guys need to stay healthy. So just like I mentioned with Matt Stafford, those two players really stand out for me because when those guys are healthy and playing at a high level, this is a different football team. If that can happen, I think it could really help this team become a contender again in the NFC. Here's the other thing about the Niners, though. Incredibly light schedule. This is the easiest NFL schedule, statistically speaking, since 2015. So it's pretty crazy when you run down the teams they play and how they magically seem to avoid every elite quarterback in the league. I got to take the over 10.5. I'm not sure they're a great team, but this is a big bounce back year for the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under them, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I've been saying, Brad, you notice I've been saying San Francisco is the team that's going to go from worst to first. But the reason I'm going to take the under is because I think they're going to start out the season slow. Not necessarily that they're going to, they'll probably beat the Saints. I think the Saints are going to go 0-16. I gave it away, but we'll talk about it later. But I think those first 4 to 5 games, they may be like 2-4 after the first 6, or maybe 3-5 or whatever it is, because I think they're going to start out slow. Brandon Ayuk is not there. Jawan Jennings is hurt. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with Christian McCaffrey. But the caveat there, the one thing we know about any Shanahan is they know how to run the ball. Isaac Guerrero, that is a fantasy alert. If you draft Christian McCaffrey, what do they always say? You better tie him to Isaac Guerrero. And James Jordan out of Oregon, right? Yeah. James Jordan, another guy. So they have 2 capable guys. They're not Christian McCaffrey, so calm down, PGF Nation. But the 2 capable guys that can come in there and get the run game going. Let's remember when Christian McCaffrey got hurt and Jordan Mason took over, for the weeks that he was a starter, he was the leading rusher in the league. So they know how to run the ball, and they're going to do a lot of it because Ayuk is not going to be there. We'll have to see about Jawan Jennings. Other than that, it's DeMarcus Robinson and George Kittle. But to your point, the addition of Robert Saleh should be interesting. That secondary is still a mess back there. One of our friends, Malik Mustafa, his nephew, is also hurt, who was coming on. He's on the PUP list right now, so we'll have to wait. So I think they'll start out slow, but then when they get to that mid towards the end of the season, that's when they'll start to make their run because I think everybody will be healthy.
All right. Seattle Seahawks season over under win total is 7.5. Last year, the defense played really well down the stretch. It really started to click. That side of the ball started playing well. Geno Smith and DK Metcalf are out. Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp are in. Now, Cooper Kupp is great if healthy. And in a McVay system. So now he's not in that McVay system, and he has had some health issues here late in his career. So that's a big question mark for me. If he's healthy, we know what he's capable of, but there's some concerns that he's going to be able to play at that kind of level. Sam Darnold is a guy who was really good in a Kevin O'Connell system. Neither one of those guys have those things anymore. I think this team takes a big step back. I don't think this is a very competitive football team. I'm going to take the under 7.5 wins. I don't believe in Darnold, especially with the lack of weapons that they have there. Like I mentioned, Cooper Kupp is a really good player, but if he's healthy, I don't know about the offensive play calling. And I just think they losing some key guys on this team. I didn't think they had a great offseason. Big step back for the Seahawks. I like the under 7.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under, but I will say this, due to who their offensive coordinator is, they're in a de facto Shanahan office because of Gary Kubiak's son, Clint Kubiak, who was with the Rams, who was also with Denver when his father was there, and he was in San Francisco just a year ago. So he comes with that same pedigree of a McVay. Obviously not the level of play caller, but the offense should feel very familiar to somebody like Sam Darnold as well as Cooper Kupp. But health. Because I don't think it's just Cooper Kupp's health. I think it's also the health of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, which I think will be key to help them get this thing going. But I do think they take a step back, and I'm going to take the under as well.
All right, NFC South. Let's start with the Atlanta Falcons. Season over under win total is 7.5. Look, I'm going to call my shot right now. This is going to be a breakout year for Michael Penix Jr. and this offense. We both really like this kid coming out of Washington. He flashed late last year when he got a handful of starts, and I think he builds off of that. I think they've got the weapons in place for him to succeed right out of the gate. If Jalen Walker and James Pierce, the two rookies that they drafted, if they can just upgrade the pass rush, watch out for Atlanta. I like this coach. I like this staff. I like a lot of the pieces they have in place. This is a team that I think can legitimately make a run for the NFC South title. I'm going to take the over, and I feel really good about it. 7.5 wins feels low. I think the ceiling for this team could be double-digit wins.
If there were any alarms to go off or anything, this is the bet of the year as far as I'm concerned. Taking the over here with the Falcons. I think Michael Penix has literally drilled down. He's literally been calling and speaking to Kyle Pitts, who's going into his 5th year. Let's remember that, going into his 5th year, this is a money year for him, so he's going to be looking to get paid. I don't like their weapons too much. I like Drake London. I like Kyle Pitts if he can put it all together. But when you talk about Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod as the other guys, I think there's a piece missing there. I do like the signing of G.J. Chark. Health comes up again because that guy can streak down the field while Drake London cleans up everything under that. I would also add to your point, Jalen Walker, James Pierce. Let's also talk about Leonard Floyd. They got rid of Grady Jarrett and they doubled and tripled down on pass rushers, bringing in Lloyd, drafting Walker, and as well as Pierce. That secondary should look good with Bates still back there, AJ Terrell back there, who's probably a top 5, top 10 corner, depending on where you want to put him. So it should be interesting on how they pull everything together. But Michael Penix, fantasy alert. I'll just say that.
Before we move on, I think you forgot maybe their best weapon, though. Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, obviously.
You want to talk about a really, really good young running back and a guy who can catch out of the backfield and serve as an outlet for this young quarterback. I think we're both in agreement here. We really like the over here for the Atlanta Falcons. Carolina Panthers season over under win total is 6.5. Now, Bryce Young, for you guys that might not have been paying attention to the Carolina Panthers late in the year, I get it. But this guy took a big step forward from week 8 on. He actually had, Alex, the most big-time throws in the NFL during that stretch. Pretty impressive stuff. He really started to click for this guy. Carolina, now look, on the other side of the ball, they actually had the worst defense in the NFL last season. So that's going to be a problem. But this is a team that invested heavily on the defensive side this offseason. So as bad as it were, I do expect them to improve. I don't think they're going to be the 85 Bears, but I think they'll be all right. Give me the over 6.5, Alex. I think this is a team that might be all right, especially if Bryce Young can continue that momentum and that offense can continue to click. They could be a team that's competitive and maybe gets to 7 wins.
Yeah, I think it will be a bit of a struggle. But so to be contrarian for the point, I'll take the under. But I think they're going to be one of those teams that are in every single game, and we'll be talking about them next year that they're ready to pop, right? Remember Detroit? Everybody remembers Detroit lost like every single game by less than a touchdown, and then that next year they popped and became something. To your point about Bryce Young, I look for sneaky fantasy pick in Bryce Young because you talked about the big plays, and what did they do? What did they go and add in the first round? They added another big time weapon for him in Ted McMillan to go with Xavier Legette, to go with Adam Thielen. And Jimmy Horn is the guy I talked about. I think he's going to be able to get on the field in that slot because Adam Thielen is not going to be playing a lot of snaps. So I think you're going to see him on the field in the slot. And I think he's going to do some good things. A kid that I'm truly and really rooting for. The defense, I think it's just a wait and see. We'll just have to see.
Well, they can't get any worse. We know that. So I'm a little surprised, Alex. I thought you liked Carolina this year. I'm a little surprised. I thought the over was you were. I
was thinking about the over, but we have to remember a team that we're going to talk about later.
All right. So let's get to the New Orleans Saints. Sorry, Saints fans. I know we start laughing the second you come up, but over under season win total is 5.5. Ouch. 29th ranked defense last year. They were awful on that side of the ball. Rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck takes over, second rounder. A guy that, look, I understand why some people liked his tape. He's got some traits. He's got some things that you can circle and say, okay, he makes some nice throws on tape. I don't think the guy's going to be terrible, but I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback for them. I'm just going to predict that right now. You also have a rookie head coach with Kellen Moore, so big question mark there. And quite frankly, look, I went up and down this roster, both sides of the ball. This might be the worst roster in the NFL. I mean, there is not a lot to get excited about here. Yeah, they've got a couple players here and there. Give me the under 5.5, which I know is crazy, right? Under 5.5, you'd think the over would be the play for almost anybody, but I think this team is going to be downright bad and is going to be in the mix with the Giants for the first overall pick.
And they'll be in the mix. Well, I don't know with the Giants, but they'll definitely be in the mix for the first round for a top pick, and perhaps we get a father-son tandem with Nussmeier as the OC there. But by the way, who's our favorite defensive coordinator? He used to be a head coach for the Chargers. This is the defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley. Good luck there. I don't really have much to talk about with this team, with the exception of why is Alvin Kamara still on this team? I mean, I know they're always up against the cap, and maybe the cap hit, they keep pushing it down the line, but I know free Alvin Kamara. I'm not the biggest fan of the guy, but whatever. Free Alvin Kamara at some point. I don't know. Other than that, I guess we could talk about fantasy. Chris Olave is going to get a lot of targets. That's all I got. That's all I have here. Chris Olave is going to get a lot of targets.
Yeah. Might be a sneaky play there for sure. All right, let's wrap it up. Tampa Bay Buccaneers over under season win total is 9.5. The defending NFC South champs. Look, Baker Mayfield has been a stud since he got to Tampa. This guy has been really playing like a top 10 quarterback. I think this team has a really nice blend right now of veterans and young talent on both sides of the ball. And usually when you have that nice blend, you've got a team that can make some noise. I think the defense bounces back this year. They took a little bit of a dip last year, but I trust Todd Bowles to get it going again. And speaking of Todd Bowles, this is a guy that just has not gotten enough credit for the job he has done in Tampa. This team has been consistently tough to deal with. I like the over 9.5. I know that it's a little bit of a tall number there. That means they've got to get to 10 or more, but I think they can because I don't think the division is overwhelming. I like Atlanta, like we mentioned, but Carolina is still completely in a rebuild. New Orleans is a dumpster fire. Look, I like the Bucs here, the consistency of this team. Like I mentioned, I know you lose Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, which I think was a big part of Baker's development process, but I think this is a team that could once again be right there in the mix to win the South again and get to double-digit wins.
Yeah, so we talk about Todd Bowles. We need to also talk about Baker Mayfield and the resurrection of his career. This kid has literally shown us the same thing that he showed us in college, regardless of what you think about him, his chutzpah, whatever, but he is a dog. 2-time walk-on. This guy is going to keep fighting. And let's be clear, if they don't fumble that ball, I don't know if the Eagles win that game from the playoffs last year. If he doesn't, Washington. Washington. Maybe perhaps that's Tampa Bay going on that run instead of Washington, because it's not like Washington beat them. There was a lot of mishaps on the Tampa Bay side on why they won. It's not taking anything away from Washington, John. But anyway, the new offensive coordinator, John Grizzard, was there last year. He was the passing game coordinator, so that's a good thing. They they probably tripled down on wide receiver, drafting Emeka Ibuka. They still have Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's going to come back. Jalen McMillan, a guy that we were high on when he came out, had 8 touchdowns last year filling in for Chris Godwin. Trey Palmer is a speedster that they tend to use. And a guy that I had been talking about last year, Bucky Irvin, is now going to be the full-time starter. So what we saw late in the season will now look to stretch out over a 17-game season to see what he really is, even though they use Rashard White very well. He was a guy that had about, I believe it was 53 catches, about 550 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So even though they had the two-headed monster, they were using them. Everybody was touching the ball. And in an offense like this, if John Grizzard can kind of step in, having been there with Leon, understanding how the plays work and when to call them, this could be another 35-plus touchdown year for Baker Mayfield. Again, he'll throw a lot of interceptions, but he's going to throw a lot more touchdowns.
Yeah, guys, and if you like this episode or you like the content we're putting out, be sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. And if you haven't already, go back and check out our AFC season over-under win totals episode.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.